Thank you all for coming. I'm Gary Klinzmann, for those of you that don't know me. And I'd just like to start, I remember the moment when I was 9 years old, when my father told Alan and I that he met Dottie, of course, at a dance in Windsor, Connecticut. My father was very upbeat, he was very smitten about it, and we both knew that he was serious because he couldn't stop talking about her. Very soon after that, we met Dottie, and actually we met her whole family. It was at her house in East Hartford on Hill Street, and I'll never forget the day. Everybody was there. Pam, Diane, her family, Nancy, Bruce. It was like, it's very vivid. And the family was very warm, gave us a warm welcome. And I just remember Alan and I were in the backyard with Michael and Billy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. We were playing badminton. It was I didn't expect to get this emotional. I'm sorry. But it was a great day, and we enjoyed everybody's company, and everybody was very warm to us, and it was welcoming. It was very happy. And anyway, I just want to say that I felt a strong comfort, and Dottie was a sweetheart to us. We immediately accepted her, and I knew my father would marry her, and I was very happy that they both had each other. Many weekends, my brother and I would take day trips with my father and Dottie. We go to country fairs, horse races, go-karts in Manchester, the Mount Time Alpine Slide, Riverside Park, to name a few. My father and Dottie, they kept us entertained. Dottie was very warm, loving, and caring, and treated us like her own. Alfred and Dottie married in May of 1981 and had 42 amazing years together. Traveling the country, camping, going on cruises, the Caribbean. They had a great time enjoying each other's company. My father, as my brother mentioned, he had an amazing work ethic. He can count on one hand how many days he missed work in his lifetime. With my father, though, there's no free lunches. I learned at a very, very, very early age that he was reluctant to give a handout. His work ethic and frugal mentality rubbed off on me, my brother, and my sister. I remember Alan and I, as he mentioned before, when we were 9 years old, we started paper routes, but also we mowed lawns, raked leaves, shoveled driveways, anything to make a buck. And making our own money became a passion. And because my father always told us stories about how he had the boats and the cars and all these things, but he also he earned all his money. He started from nothing, and he built what he had from an early age. So we wanted the same thing. So we were go-getters as well. And there's a term: you can teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. When my father and Dottie would take us camping to Hammonasset in the summertime, Pam and her family would be there in a site. I remember, Bridget, Frankie, Paul. They had their little cars. It was a lot of fun. Mike and Billy were there. And a favorite memory was my father bought us a dragnet. And I remember we would take it to the creek. There's a creek that ran through Hammonasset by the camp store. And so it would be me and my brother, Mike and Billy. We'd go down there. We'd drag net these fish. We'd probably, we'd fill up a bucket, or like half a bucket. We were there for hours. Then we'd go to the camp store, and they didn't pay us much for it, but we would cash in. They'd give us money. We'd buy candy. So it was like and the great thing was, we were all eager to work. Like Michael was in on it. Billy, my brother, like, yeah, we're gonna make some money, and we'd see the candy. So it was something. It was an entrepreneurship that was just kind of spurred on by this net that we had. So that was okay. So one time, we would go camping throughout the summer. One time it was me and my brother, and my father, and Dottie, and I remember we netted some bait, and we went to Meg's Point, It was like August, and this is when the Snapper Blues run. I'll never forget the day. The three of us are lined up on Meg's Point. We're casting in the bait, and we had the bobbers, and all of a sudden, bam, we were just catching snapper blue one after another. It was like we couldn't miss. It was amazing. And it got to the point where people that were next to us, they couldn't catch any fish. So they're sitting there trying to catch next to us, thinking it was all about the location, and they're crossing our lines, and it's like there was this big envy. And all the while it was that magic bait that we caught. So, but it was an unforgettable day. And we ended up walking out that day with like 10 pounds of snapper blues and one of these hefty bags. So I remember we went back and we cooked it up, but it was something that was quite special. My father, as Alan mentioned, he was a teacher. He'd teach you all day long if you had the patience. He loved science, electronics, and mechanics. He also liked to buy us gifts that were educational. He planted seeds. It wasn't just, he wasn't gonna just go out there and buy us something useless. It had to have some meaning to it. And I went looking for it this morning. I couldn't find it, but I had this electronics kit. It was a 151 electronics kit. It was Radio Shack that sold it. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but my father bought it for us, me and Alan. We were like 10 years old. We used to make radios out of it. You basically follow in the book, there's instructions. You connect the wires together. We would make radios, like all these funky noises, the cat sound, the sirens, and the thing is, we never got sick of it. We used this thing for a couple of years, and with that electronics kit, it inspired me. Where I remember I was in high school and I had an opportunity to go to this tech school for a year. It was called Bristol Satellite School. Now it's called Bristol Tech. And I went there thinking, let me just go check the place out because I want to go to college, but at the same time, I had this draw for electronics, for mechanics, just from things that my father taught me. And I went to the school. I remember going in there, and it was actually blew me away. It was just this beautiful facility, had all these nice workbenches, had Apple computers. Back then, when I was at Wolcott High, it'd be like one computer for like 50 or 60 people. In this school, I'd have my own. And I went there. I got 2,000 apprenticeship hours, and it really let me learn all those things that I got from this one, from the gift we got. I really understood things like greater in depth, and I want to thank my dad for that gift because it was a gift that kept on giving. But my most favorite memory with my dad was when I was 11 years old. I bought this Honda 50 mini bike. I paid $15 for it from a kid in the neighborhood. It didn't run. And so I brought it to my dad's house. We would go see him on the weekend. And I'll never forget this. My father, he used this as an opportunity to teach my brother how the engine worked. And again, I couldn't tell who was more excited, if it was us or if it was my father, because he knew it. He had us here. He was going to teach us. He would teach us all the time. He even bought us, remember he bought us that engine? It was a plastic engine of the motor. He bought us this engine. He would teach us how the motor worked. He was very passionate, and he was trying to drive it to us. Sometimes we didn't have the patience for it, but eventually we did. And when we did, it was enjoyable. So step by step, we took this engine apart. We cleaned the parts in kerosene. I remember we methodically put it on the table, and my father pointed out that I think I found the problem. There was a valve that was stuck. So I remember, I'll never forget it. He took the valve, and the valve was seated into this. It was seated into this other part. And remember, he went and he got some lapping compound. He taught us how to lap it, make sure everything's seated. The valve had the seat flush into the. Had to go into the seat. I remember that, and I remember us lapping back and forth, lapping for like 20 minutes, half hour. And then also, he explained to us that it was a 4-stroke engine. He always told me, he said, it was intake, compression, power, exhaust. And he showed us how the mechanics worked, and he also showed us the timing of the mini bike. And and the beauty of it was I was 11 years old, and it just perfectly made sense. Even later, when I was in high school, I'd take like an auto shop class or something. I had maybe 5 or 6 weeks in it. It was like nothing to me because my father already gave that explanation years before. So when my father planting these seeds, which ultimately inspired me to go to Central Connecticut State University for Engineering and Technology, and that education brought me full circle into manufacturing. I was then given the opportunity to work at B&N Aerospace with my wife, my mother and father-in-law, Walter and Donna here, and also my brother-in-law, Dennis. I always admired my father's passion to troubleshoot. Whether it was an engine, something electrical, or an appliance, it wasn't a burden to him. It was an opportunity to solve a problem. He was very patient and looked forward to the challenge. I can go on all day about his Mr. Fix-It stories and how he worked with neighbors and everything. But I want to talk to you about my dad. Alfred was a good man. He followed the Golden Rule and the 10 Commandments. He preaches to us, and he always preached it to us. He lived by those rules. He was a straight shooter. He didn't lie. He loved to be social. He had a nice confidence about himself, and he didn't care if he was corny. My father made himself an easy target. But I love his personality. I love that confidence, and I love the fact that even up to 5 years ago, he would still sing nursery rhymes in my presence, whether my kids were there or not. And let's face it, everybody was his kitty, and so that was Alfred. That was my dad. He loved making people happy, and he avoided conflicts, but he tried to keep the peace, and he just had a very good disposition about himself, and I'm going to miss that. So when I was young, like between infancy to 4 years old, my father and I, most nights, he would take my brother, he put us on his lap, he would read us, we'd bring him the nursery rhyme book, and he would sing to us for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whether he'd read us poems, sing us the nursery rhymes. And I know Lori got that experience, Nancy, Scott, I'm sure he did it all, and I'm sure a lot of the grandchildren got that too. So that was very special, and I'm just glad that many of you got to share that experience with him. And I'd like to end off with a funny story. My father liked to call people by their first name and their middle name, okay? But there's one person here in the room, Frankie, where are you? Well, Frankie didn't have a middle name, and that didn't sit right with my father. So my father told Frankie, listen, your middle name is Alfred. And so the story I heard, forgive me if I get this wrong, but when Frankie was in second grade, the teacher asked him, Frankie, what's your middle name? Frankie's response was, I'm Frankie Alfred. So Frankie, I just want to let you know that you're the only one here in this room going on with that name, going forward. Do Alfred proud. So at this juncture, I'd like to open up the floor for anybody who'd like to come up and share a story they have with Alfred. Okay. I got to take it right there.